how the first chapter of our world is going to look like. In India, we've grown up the epics, especially Mahabharata and Ramayana. Another age to go, and that age is the final battle. In India, we've grown up with so much of the epics, especially Mahabharata and Ramayana, being part of our culture and everyday life, like especially not just religious, but just like even just stories that we tell our kids. And so, you know, when you grow up and you're watching a lot of, I guess, foreign films which are in the either comic book space or Marvel or Spider-Man or Star Wars or any of those things, you always wonder, like, where are our superheroes? Because they are as heroic and they are as larger than life as anybody else. I think I heard that slowly people across India were more interested, or they were starting to think about making movies like this. I heard some talk about somebody talking about Immortals and some studio trying to think about it, and I was like, okay, now it's time for us to. And the world of Kalki is something that we are saying is almost like a sequel to the last epic that we have of these characters of the previous yuga. So the previous yuga in India, in Indian culture, we have 4 yugas, right? So each yuga has a sort of a dramatic battle and a great good versus evil sort of a setup, and each time an avatar comes to restore the balance. And the last great epic that we have is the Mahabharata, where it was like a huge war with the most powerful and the most epic kings, and they fight in this dramatic battle, and they are, one side is protected by an avatar, a god figure, which is Krishna. Final epic was the last story that we know, and all of our greatest characters from there have an ending, or some of them have an open ending, or we know that this is where this story ended, but we still have another age to go, and that age is the final battle. That age is where the end essentially has to begin, and everything has to come to a climax. Like all of these stories, all of these 9 avatars, all of these 4 yugas, all of these battles which are small and big that happened since the creation of time has to end somewhere. So we tried to see if we could attempt to write that, and that's how we started. And that's where the last story of our mythology sort of ends. And now we are meant to be in the last age, which is called the Kali Yuga, and we don't really have a story of this era or of this yuga because it's still happening, obviously. And I just thought it is a very interesting idea if we start writing a sequel to the Mahabharata, what would happen, because it ended there and Kali continues from Dwapar Yuga, and he has to come into the Kali Yuga. So now if he comes in, now our heroes have to come in as well. And how is this epic going to be? How are we going to write this? And I wanted to write it in a way that it's today and it's for the whole world to be part of it now, because it's not just, because it was never, I think, ever just one country, it's always the world. So I thought we'll write it in that sensibility, and hence 5 years later we are here and we are close to being able to share with you how the first chapter of our world is going to look like. Kashi or Varanasi is said to be the first place was born. It was the idea of, like, what if our story ended here? The story is basically between these. So Kashi or Varanasi is said to be the first place where civilization was born in this world, like, by the banks of the river Ganga. That's written in a lot of our books and scriptures. It was the idea of, like, what if our story ended here? Like, if that was the first city, like, what if this world now has only one city left, and everybody in the world and all the resources and all the major conflict now happens here in Kasi. So that was the setting for Kalki. And now we are in a world where the most life-giving river, the Ganga, is dry, and people in Kasi are just living in just like a very brutal survival of the fittest sort of way. And above them towers the complex. Like maybe you guys have seen in the trailer or something, like this massive mega city sort of structure, like an inverted pyramid that is a kilometer into the sky. So that is the complex which has essentially everything. It's like paradise. It has all the greenery, resources, water, food, animals, everything that is not there in the world before. It's almost like a microcosm of what the world used to be like. And now it's the story is mainly set up here. It's between these two worlds, the people who are in the complex who control those resources and the people who are below in Kasi who don't have access, and these people in Kasi only just have a dream to enter the complex. In a way, it becomes a cycle. So for you to do the work to earn money to get into the complex is like one trap that you end up working for the complex and you finish your life before you can actually get in. So it's like one sort of a cycle, which is sort of something that happens today as well. Apart from these two worlds, there's also a third world which we call Shambhala. Shambhala is something that we hear in many cultures, like even in Tibetan culture, it's called Shangri-La, and every culture has a name which is a mystical land which is hidden from the world, and that's where some people say advanced beings, some people say the avatar, some people say many things, like how the name Shambhala itself is very connected to the myth of Kalki, to the legend of Kalki, because it's said that this is where the final avatar will come. That is the most powerful and that is the most familiar thing about the Kalki story. So these are our three worlds, and each of these worlds have a design or a thought process behind it. The complex people and the weapons and their vehicles are designed in a certain way because of what they have. People in Kasi are designed a certain way because of what they have. The world, there's money which is units, and they are bounty hunters who need these units to get their job done or to finish their aspiration to want to go into the complex. And there's this third world which is Shambhala, which is essentially the refuge. It's like a massive refugee camp in a way, like for all the religions and all the cultures that have been hunted down in this world by the complex. So they all needed a place to hide. The people in Shambhala are part refugees, part rebels, part the resistance who are fighting the complex. So the story is basically between these three worlds, and each of them are very unique in their own way, and how their paths cross and how the story goes forward.